trust is really the name of the game. So be who you are, be what you are.
I think what we're saying is invite people into the messiness.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to nail it. Don't even feel like you have to nail it the first 100 times. I think the most important thing is to show up.
Sometimes people don't even realize they have a need for what you do until they see what you do.
Yep.
And they go, that might actually be a good idea for me to think about.
On episode 372 of the podcast, we talk about how to create a compelling personal brand that attracts your ideal clients. We also cover some strategies for showcasing your unique story and values through branding. And then we also cover the role of authenticity in building a brand, even as a solopreneur, that people trust and admire, and that leads to new clients and a more sustainable business. What's up, my friend? It is Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas and the Grow Your Video Business show. I'm super excited and grateful that you are here. If you're a filmmaker wanting to grow in your business, if you want to work with somebody who is striving to be authentic, I'm trying so hard to be the same person that you're seeing or hearing, that if you were to meet me on the street or you were to come to my house and say, hey, so tell me more about your business and your life. If you want to learn from somebody that is trying to sort of merge the cross sections of running a business, trying to be a great husband and a great father and a great contributor in our community, in our world, those are some of my goals and my hopes. So I want to help teach you what I've learned. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my video business. I'm probably making some mistakes right now by recording this and not doing something else. Okay, I'm sort of teasing. But I really desire your success as much as my own success. So I don't do this show selflessly. I get plenty from this, a number of benefits and things. This show, this brand, all this scratches some itches for me, and I am thankful to do it. So I'm glad that you're here. If you're new, I want to invite you to our 6-Figure Filmmaker Workshop. This workshop, it's about a 45-minute teaching where I share it's actual information that you can apply in your business. So there's not tons of fluff. I'm not like teasing you with like, hey, here's a little bit of stuff, and then I pitch my course. I really share these are the biggest things in my business that have been helpful. And then I do invite you to, if you're interested in our Video Business Academy, there is an invitation for that. But the time will be well spent, and you can get free access to this workshop by going to studiosherpas.com/workshop. We'd love for you to check that out. Super thankful that you're here. Let's jump into today's episode. Personal branding, social media. I like it. I've hated it for so long, and I'm beginning to see the benefits of it for me and my business as we've been really investing for probably the last year and a half. Yeah, the last year and a half on creating a social presence. So got some good stuff here for you today. So let's jump into today's episode. What's up, friends? Welcome to another episode of the show. Today with me is Christine Gritmon, who is a personal branding expert, and I'm super excited, selfishly, to have her because I can talk about all the stuff about me, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for you. Christine, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What is your favorite thing about personal branding?
My favorite thing about it is that it's so individual, really. Like, I really like the fact that it's not cookie cutter, at least when it's done well. I like the fact that everyone I work with, it's a different experience. A lot of people say it's much more efficient to sort of systemize your work and not reinvent the wheel. But in my case, I actually find that I have a much better result with clients when I really do make it very individual, very personal, and I don't try to shove them into the same handful of boxes, a lot of times people need a different approach to really get to the heart of who they are, what they want, what they're comfortable putting out there. And, I like being able to give them that space, and I like being able to work with that on a very individual basis. So, yeah, the individuality
That's cool.
of personal branding work is my favorite part.
What would you say, like, what's been one of the coolest transformations of somebody that you've worked with?
Ah, they're definitely, I really love it when someone who hates social media is kind of, like, I know I have to do it. I don't want to do it, but I know that I'm doing myself a disservice if I don't do it. When someone like that finds something that they actually really like creating, that's really fun to see. Like I had one client who basically begged me to not make her have to be on Facebook. And so we set up some automations for Facebook, usually not what I do, but
Yeah.
I was like, you need to be there simply because she was in an industry that had a lot of referrals happening in Facebook groups and I needed them to be able to tag her. I'm like, but you know what? That's not where you hang out. That's totally fine. She wound up falling in love with Instagram. So
Huh.
now I have these gorgeous Instagrams from her. I don't work with her anymore, but all these gorgeous Instagram pictures keep coming onto my feed. And I know she's doing it herself. And she
Yeah.
actually got into email marketing as well. And I love that when I get an email from her. And of course, it's got the beautiful pictures and all of that. And she's just doing it. And this is something she never would have seen herself doing before. And then I have another client back when I was less about the personal branding, more specifically just social media strategy. I have a client where I set up a really, really easy strategy for her to do just kind of every week. Like, okay, on this day you do this, on this day you do this, on this day you do this. And it's been 5 or 6 years and she's still doing it because we found something that worked for her and that she
Yeah.
could maintain. And first of all, I'm just happy to see that she's still in business. Like
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
thing when
Right.
you work with like the little guys, it's always just great when they're still in business. It's like it makes me really sad if someone I have known or have worked with is not anymore just because that's the way the landscape is. So, but I love the fact that she's in my feed all week long. I'm seeing her doing the thing. I'm seeing her get more comfortable with it. I'm seeing her put her own spin on it. And it just makes me really happy that like we came up with things that they can do and that they feel comfortable expressing themselves with. And it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like the chore that they were so worried that it would feel like at the beginning.
Hmm. I wonder, for people that are listening, when they hear the term personal branding, like
Yeah.
that question of like, okay, for sure, my clients, like, they need to be doing personal branding and I can help them with video stuff. But when it comes to the actual producer, the video production, the business owner, does that, I mean, do we need to be thinking about our own personal branding?
Yeah, I think that people of any profession who have a strong personal brand have a distinct advantage over people who don't for
Hmm.
a couple of reasons. One of them, the most basic reason, is, and every podcast I'm on, basically, I wind up quoting the networking expert Bob Berg. He said, "All things being equal, people prefer to do business with and refer business to people who they know, like, and trust." My favorite three words: know, like, and trust. And so having a human face to the business, having people feel like they're talking to a real human because they are, definitely helps with that. And you want that to start before they contact you for work. You want them to start knowing who you are, liking your style, liking how you do things, and trusting you before they contact you for a quote. Because if you're not doing it, there's someone else who is. And that person is starting off ahead a little bit if there's someone who's already been following them, already familiar with who they are, not just saw their work on a portfolio site once they started looking for someone to hire. You want to be in someone's head before they're hiring, and you want to be in their head as you, because that's where the trust comes in. But
Mhm.
then there's another reason too, certainly, which is that when you are doing work for other people, which is probably what most people's portfolios are built out of when they're creating things for other people, right? that's the other person's spin on it in a way. Like there are always
Mm.
compromises made when we're doing creative work for someone else because ultimately it is theirs. And so the nice thing about doing stuff for yourself as yourself is it's entirely your creative vision. It's saying here's what I can do, not here's what I had to do. If that
Hmm.
makes sense. And I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of creative professionals especially can really understand that friction there when it comes to your work.
Yeah. There definitely is a sense, and I think I felt it early on in my career, but as I coach filmmakers and have these conversations, there is this thing of wanting our online presence to feel bigger than it actually is. Because if I want the big contracts, right? If I want a $50,000, $100,000 video job working for some agency or some corporation, they can't know that it's just me. They need to know that, like, or they need to think that I've got a team of editors and a producer and a director and a DP and like all these people so that they'll just trust us more immediately. So this is kind of a rub of like, my encouragement to people always is like, if it's just you, please put a picture of just you on your site and own that and be okay with that.
Yes.
I think, corporations, I think especially today, more so today now than ever, do people realize that, we don't all have to have like big agencies to be able to do big work. We just, if we have a network of people and contractors, that's just the way so much work gets done. So speak to the person that would feel like I don't want to be seen. I'm trying to have my brand. My brand isn't my name anymore. I've graduated. So now, it could be sold and somebody's not going to feel like, oh, well, yeah, but that person doesn't work here anymore. So we've graduated to this spot of having a more, I don't want to say generic brand name, but we've got a brand name that isn't our name.
We are the XYZ video agency.
Right. Yeah. That.
Or
So
media company, the XYZ media company. It's you and your camera, but XYZ media company.
exactly. So for that person that has felt this, like, okay, I just need to try to, be as big as I can so that, people feel confidence in who we are. What is your thought on how personal branding plays into that mindset?
Well, I completely agree with you, first of all, that if it's you, you should be the person who's there. Don't put stock images of your fake team
Oh,
or any
yeah,
nonsense like that.
gross.
A couple of reasons. First of all, just to get ahead of it a little bit, actually do think about what your capacity is. Because if you were trying to get the big guys who expect a whole production team and then you fool them and you get them,
Yeah,
and then you're scrambling to deliver, that's not a great situation to get yourself into either. So maybe first of
yeah,
all, be realistic about what you're trying to get. Um,
that's
but
good.
you did mention that a lot of people do bring in, contractors, trusted professionals. They can, kind of be part of the brand too, just not in that way. Like you can be straight up, you can say, okay, I'm the head of the company, I'm the person you're dealing with, I'm who you're really buying into.
Right.
I am Christine of XYZ Media. And then every now and then you could do a post that's kind of giving a shout out to some of those other professionals, like maybe, an Instagram shot of someone sort of hunched over the editing board or whatever. And you could say, shout out to one of our most trusted editors at such and such media. We're always really happy to work with them on, projects. I don't know. And so then you're not high, you're showing that you do have additional capacity, that you do use other professionals who are trusted. You are getting additional visibility for yourself because hopefully that person's going to share your post because they should. So I mean, I think just keep it real always, because anytime you're trying to put up a facade, um, holes are going to get punched in it eventually, and you want to make sure that you don't disappoint people. You don't make people feel like their trust has been misplaced. Trust, trust, trust is really the name of the game. So be who you are, be what you are, and let's say you are small and you really do want to expand the type of jobs you're getting. You do want to get those big companies coming in. You are going to be the one who can network. You don't just want to be found. You have to be
Right.
out there connecting with people, becoming known as an expert, so that hopefully you get the opportunity to have a conversation with someone from those companies who are like, well, we're considering looking at a video agency actually. Can you do this type of project? And we haven't even started looking at people yet, at companies yet, but like, is this something you guys do? You could be like, why, yes, actually. And then you get to tell them. So you're not counted out from the get go, because
Right.
they know if they have a question, it's not going to go through some crazy funnel. It's not going to go to some assistant's assistant. It's going to go to you. They know who they're talking to, they know who to ask, and you can put it out there.
That's really good. It made me think that if you are the one that's in charge of sales and you're the one that should be networking, who knows if you are or not, but if you're doing those things and you're like the first, touch point, or one of the very first touch points that people connect with when they reach out for a new quote or whatever, that seems like the perfect person that should be building out their personal brand, that should be showing up online, so that people are like, oh, that's the guy that I saw at the networking thing, or that's the guy that I keep seeing around, or that's the person that I talk to, for them to see that's right. And that's a much faster way to build trust. If maybe they saw you online before they met you in person, and then when they meet you in person, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, like how cool to finally put the real face to the real name in person.
You start a few steps ahead. It's kind of like, I met my husband online many, many moons ago, and I kind of said that it felt like we started on date 5 or something,
Yeah,
just because we
yeah,
knew so much about each other already. Like, we knew how many kids we each wanted. Like, we knew where we stood on all sorts of life issues. Like, we knew a bunch of stuff because, first of all, our profiles were right there listing out stuff you might talk about early on, but that also we, messaged back and forth a little before actually meeting in person. So when we actually met in person, it was about, okay, is there chemistry? Like, we
right.
already knew so much was in place already. And your personal brand can actually do that for you. It can make people feel like they sort of know you,
Yeah, yeah,
and they know what you're about, and they know if they're vibing with that or not before they ever meet you in a professional context.
yeah. My friend Jimmy says, when talking to new potential clients, or maybe not talking to them, to get a no as soon as possible should be one of our number one goals, right? And really what he means is, like, when you're on a phone with somebody that's inquiring about your video services, the sooner you can get them to say, like, oh, no, not for me, not a fit, the better, because then that person can go somewhere else that is a better fit for them, and you can be working with somebody that is a better fit for you. And
Absolutely.
one great way to do that, by showing up online, you're able to build or start building that relationship. And it might be one-sided for the longest time, people just watching your posts, seeing your posts, getting your emails, until they're ready to take that step. And when they take that step, they're past the, like, no, I don't think this guy's I actually kind of like him. I like the things that he says. So I'm going to have this phone call. And then maybe on the phone call, it's like, oh, I didn't realize your prices started at that high, or I didn't realize that you only work with, higher ed, or something like that. It's like, yes, every interaction. And if you can create those opportunities for connection, for trust building before a phone call, one way or the other, where a person sees you online and they're like, if this guy is actually like this, I don't want to work with them. That's okay too, right? That's you kind of want that. You want people saying, like, not a fit.
Watching. You never know who's watching is another really important part. Like, the people who have engaged with my stuff the most have mostly been the audience of my peers. So they've been people who, in some cases they could work with me, but the fact is, generally speaking, they're very online people. They maybe have a sense of this stuff a little bit more and are a little less likely to hire me. The people who have reached out and hired me and said, hey, I've been following you forever, I love your stuff, and I think I'm ready for you. They're often people where I never knew who this person was. I didn't know that they were watching. I didn't know that they were listening. If I had looked into my email database, maybe I'd have seen their name, but Generally, they're not the people sticking their hands up. They're just watching. They're like quietly in wait. Some of these have been people who I've gotten business from people who I haven't spoken to in decades. Like it's been decades. I met them some earlier life stage, like people I met in elementary school or high school, someone I met through a job I had in my early 20s. Those people, we stayed in each other's radar. We stayed in each other's LinkedIn networks. And apparently, when I became like very visible on social media, they were watching. I didn't know that until the day that they emailed me and they said, hey, so I think I need you. Okay, cool. And since they had been watching, they had an understanding of what I did and they were ready. And let me tell you, that sales funnel was this big because it was, yes, I was doing all the top of funnel stuff of being visible and being clear about what I do and all of that, but then I didn't have to do anything to get them right to the bottom. They put themselves there. Yeah. And so that's another really nice thing too, which is that sometimes people don't even realize they have a need for what you do until they see what you do.
Yep.
And they go, that might actually be a good idea for me to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had a conversation about this very specific thing where people, I've heard people complain about not having the right kind of clients or doing the right kind of projects. And I used to be a big proponent against not being overly involved on social media. But now what I'm realizing is that as we've kind of changed our own narrative and say, no, we're going to show up and we're going to tell the stories that we want to, and we're going to educate the things that we think are the most important. So now when people are calling us, they're talking about the importance of storytelling and soulful storytelling and the power of a brand film. They're telling me the things that, I've been teaching, but it's only because they've been listening. And otherwise, the only conversations I'm having with people are people that might be referred or find us organically online, and they're reaching out because they have a need for video, and they're not expecting me to step in and say like, oh, I'm not sure you need that. I think what you need is a brand film. They're expecting me to just follow or take their order. Whereas like the people that are engaging with you on social, they are getting a clearer picture of how you help and how you want to show up, because you get to pick what you talk about. If you don't ever want to do a certain kind of video, or you think that's the worst idea, show up and talk about that, or don't ever talk about it, because like you talk about the kind of video that you think every business should have, or the one that is going to drive the most results. Like talk about those things, educate the people on the kind of stuff that you believe that they should be doing that you can do super well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People worry that when I say to put themselves out there online, that it means they have to be everywhere and they have to be annoying and they have to be doing synchronized dances on TikTok. And, they have this idea of what it means. And what they don't realize is, no, what it means is individual. It's what it means for you. And sometimes they're surprised even by what that is. Like, for example, I don't do TikTok for my professional presence. I just don't. And I love video. I've been doing video for so long, and people say, well, you have the personality for TikTok. You would do great on TikTok. You should totally do TikTok. But I don't want to. And I don't have to.
Right.
And I admit I'm saying this at a time where my own content strategy has been lagging. As we talked about before we started recording, I'm in kind of a weird crossroads where I'm really trying to figure out what I want to go hard on next. Right now I'm in a weird sort of transitional period. But the fact is, when I went for it with, whatever content I was doing and whatever content I'm doing now, like the podcast, for example, my podcast, Let's Talk About Brand. Like I do that, but the stuff surrounding it has changed based on what I feel like doing or what I don't feel like doing. I used to record it live. It used to be a live show, and I would just also release it as a podcast. And then I said, it doesn't really work for my life anymore right now to have this standing commitment every single week. And then God forbid someone cancels and you're scrambling. And like, that doesn't really work for me. It's not really giving me the result that I want. I'm going to make it a podcast. And there is a video, it's on YouTube, but I'm going to make it primarily a podcast, and it's going to be non-live, and I can batch create a bunch at once if I feel like it. And I've played with different things to put around it, but I've said, this is what I feel like I can commit to right now. This is what I feel like I could be excited about creating right now. And then I do intend to be trying some new fun things around it going forward, and I'm still trying to hit on the right balance of it. Twitter being decimated really just kind of screwed up that strategy a little bit, because my chat was the main companion for a while. But still, like, you can change things, you can do different things. In fact, if you're doing too many things, no one's going to see any of them. Once I started doing fewer things and really committing to them, people thought I was doing more stuff simply because they were seeing me more.
Yeah.
Because there was less noise. Right. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be all the things. Just do something. Find out what works. Find out what feels right. And if that changes, change what you're doing. It's okay.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I watched a video by Gary Vee the other day, and he was talking about, I think he said he posts 6 times a day or something like this. I don't know if it was on like LinkedIn or something. And he's like, and people give me a hard time. They're like, aren't you like, inundating people? He's like, nobody's going to see any of those 6 posts anyway. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I think, I've worried about in the past, like doing 1 post a week or 1 post a day during the week. I'm like, that's just a lot of like, it's like, yeah, right. Do I think the algorithm gods favor me that much that I'm going to be showing up that much? And for the right people, sure. But in most cases, nobody's going to see the stuff anyway. So get over yourself.
You're the only one who sees 100% of your content. The only one.
Yeah.
It's just true.
Yep. That's good. So for somebody that is thinking, I'm not sure what to post, I'm not even sure where to start. The idea of batching, I think, is one of the most brilliant concepts. Today is my batch day. I've got 4 podcast episodes. So next month or the following month, like these episodes roll out and I'll be like, oh yeah, cool. I remember doing that, like barely, because that was a while ago, but I knocked them all out. Then I don't have to think about it for the rest of the month. What other strategies or things should be video people in particular, should we be doing 1 post a week, one a month? Like, what are some best practices in how help us get started? I think that's the biggest thing where most people are just like, I don't even know where to get started, so I'm just not going to do it.
Well, honestly, I'd say first and foremost, hopefully, if you're passionate about what you're doing, there's stuff you're thinking about. There's stuff you're geeking out on. There's stuff you have opinions on. Start there. Share that. Your opinions are actually, what to you is just your opinion, to others is expertise. They're learning something from you based on your opinion as someone who actually knows about this stuff, who does this stuff. But also I'd say chunk things down. So I'd say, like, let's say you have strong thoughts on the use of AI in video, AI technologies, whether you're pro or anti, or you've been playing with it or whatever, no matter where you stand on it. Let's just say the topic is AI in video. There's so many directions you can go with that. Like, let's say you love it. You can say, you can do one little thing where you say, okay, so I know this is contentious, but I love it. Here's a little bit of why. Then you can say, okay, so here's how I love it. Here's how I love using it. Then you can say, here's some of the tools I'm using for it. So you can kind of stretch it out and chunk it down. Or let's say you hate it. And let's say you're like, okay, everyone's talking about AI in video. I'm not a fan. Here's why. Just kind of gloss over the basics. Then you can say, okay, so here's an example of something done by a human and something done by AI. I mean, look, AI can't do this. AI can't do that. Basically, whatever the topic is, take how you feel on it. And it doesn't have to be something controversial either. It can just be something people are talking about, something people want to know about, something people are looking for thoughts on, that you have educated thoughts on. And then chunk it down. Say, okay, so here's the idea. How can I make that idea into 10 smaller ideas? So instead of doing one big piece of work, you're doing 10 small pieces of work, which kind of feel like just one piece of work. You can stretch that out into multiple formats. But look at what people tend to be talking about, what you've been thinking about, also what people tend to ask. So most of us, if we work with clients, there are some questions we tend to get over and over, or worse yet, there are questions we don't get that we should. That
Mm.
you're like, I wish more people
Yeah.
who came
Yep.
to me
It's
knew
good.
this. Um, talk about that stuff, because someone will see themselves in it. Someone will be like, oh, I didn't know that. All right, that's good to know. I mean, you're essentially training your clients to be, as it were. You're able to sort of get the people who are consuming your content, again, to go back to the marketing funnel analogy, but they're in your funnel. They're watching your stuff. So you might as well also kind of train them to be better clients for when they get to the end by educating
Totally.
them on stuff you wish they knew. So that's something anyone can do. Anyone who is in a service-based industry or profession at all has stuff that people ask about, has stuff they wish people knew, has stuff that relates to their industry that they know people are talking about or thinking about, or that they are. That's all you need. And you have the thoughts already. So just share them. If you're not comfortable talking straight to video, maybe, write something. If you're not comfortable writing, maybe, God, I guess you could do audio set to like other video, just make sure to caption it. I don't know. But the fact is, there are ways of expressing your thoughts in a million different ways. Play with them, see what's the least scary. Once you get into a habit of doing something and it gets rolling and it's getting eyeballs, it won't the first time, or it will the first time and then it won't the next few times. And you're like, where'd they go? But once you kind of get rolling, you have that data to work off of. You have the data of, here's what people responded to, here's what really clicked with people, maybe I should do more of that. But you also have the data from yourself of, here's what felt good to me, here's something that I could see doing more of, here's something where I sat down to do the first video and I wound up knocking out like 5.
Mm.
Use both of those, because if it's getting comments, if it's getting views, if it's getting shares, if it's getting, phone calls, that's fantastic, unless you hate doing it.
Yeah. Right.
So use both of those sources of data, both the outside world, the audience, as it were, and yourself.
I love that. My friend Graham Cochran says, go ugly early.
Yeah.
And as a
Well, you're already
video,
full.
right? But as a video professional, we try so hard to make our imagery beautiful. We want it to look beautiful. We want it to sound beautiful. We want it to be emotive, all of these things. So at least for me, for the longest time, there was this feeling, if I'm going to post anything, I want it to be beautiful. I want it to be meaningful. I want it to, just, and that takes time. And then it can feel like, wow, this is going to take way too much time to get 0 eyeballs on it, or to just get a couple eyeballs on it. So I think what we're saying is invite people into the messiness.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to nail it. Don't even feel like you have to nail it the first 100 times. I think the most important thing is to show up. We all have or should have FAQs that we know, when we're going to go through a client discovery call, the things that we're going to ask, things that we know that they should be asking. If they're not, you could just create 10 or 20 of those right now and vamp on one of those, whether it's video or text or whatever. There's so much potential content. And then one recommendation, let's say you come up with, or you already have your 10 FAQs, drop that into ChatGPT and just say, hey, I'm a video company. These are the top 10 FAQs. Give me some other ideas around content that I could be creating. And then you could have literally like endless stream of content ideas. So it's not there's not a shortage of content ideas, but you need to carve out the time to figure out what could those be. And then, I mean, what I'm hearing you say, Christine, is that by batching, saying like, hey, I'm going to take an hour, or I'm going to take half a day once a month, and just knock those out. Like whether it's a post a week, a couple of posts a week, or something like that. But to build out that time where you're creating specifically, and not like, let's see, I don't have anything right after lunch. Okay, I'm going to do a post today. And when's the next time? I don't know, 10 days from now. Okay, I've got some time. Like that's not sustainable. That makes it pretty tough. And eventually you could, find a partner or somebody that can come alongside and help pull this stuff out. So you're not having to, if you hate sitting down once a month to do this exercise, having a chat with somebody for 30 minutes to download some things that are going on, ideas, thoughts, and then having somebody else help create the content. I mean, that's a great strategy as well.
Totally. Two things I want to go back to. One of them is you pointed out there's no shortage of things to talk about, but a lot of people get in their own heads of feeling like they don't have the authority to speak on it. And so first of all, get over that. Like, you only need to know more than the person who your words can help. So if there's someone who doesn't know something and you do, and you're like discounting your knowledge by saying, oh, but everybody knows that, or, oh, I mean, I don't have anything useful to add. That's not true. There's someone out there who doesn't know it. And so you're an expert to them. So don't worry about it. And then you mentioned about how people a lot of times want it to be perfect, want it to look right, want to, have it beautifully edited, all of that. People really trust immediacy. People really trust stuff that's a little less polished. And honestly, people care more about the value of your message than they do about your production value, even if your production value is what they're going to be buying for themselves.
Yeah, right. That's good.
Your message is what matters. We were talking before we went live about the fact that I'm a mess. I'm like sitting here on my daughter's bedroom floor. There are clothes all around me. This is her door behind me, and my good microphone isn't working for no apparent reason. I don't know why, but my Yeti's doing me dirty today. And I'm here, and someone's going to get value out of this conversation that we've had today. And imagine if I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to reschedule till it's perfect. No. We're delivering gold here.
Yeah, no, that's super good. I mean, content is king. I think looking at things differently from the work, your client work, and your own personal brand work. And people love being invited into the messiness because they don't feel so bad about themselves. And then it also gives them freedom to be like, oh, okay, they do this gorgeous emotive videos for clients. That's not what my social media is. It could be. I could just post that kind of stuff. Or I could say, no, I'm going to show up and I'm going to educate and I'm going to, talk about things I care about. And I'm going to do it like with my phone, and it's going to be shaky or not perfect lighting or my messy office or whatever, because there is this feeling of like, oh, if I'm doing this, then maybe my clients could feel like, yeah, I could do that too.
Perfectionism is really a procrastination tool, is what it really is. So don't let perfectionism be your excuse that lets you not do it. Just do it. Yeah. Make it better later.
Yeah. And the more reps you get in, the more comfortable you'll become, the better you'll get at it. And you'll either totally embrace, like, you know what, I'm 100 videos in, and I actually don't care if I don't have my good light or my good mic. You'll start seeing what matters and getting more comfortable in whatever rhythm that you think or that you find is good for the way that you want to operate.
Absolutely. And you can't find what that is until you do it. Super good.
Christine, what's the best way for people to follow you? You've got your podcast. Where can they find that? And where can they find you online?
Yeah, so my podcast is Let's Talk About Brand. It's on all the major podcast players, of course. So Let's Talk About Brand. And it's about personal branding. I have several seasons up, so it has varied at times to be about specific elements of branding in general. I've talked to people from brands, consumer brands and stuff, but I really have been getting back to the roots this season about personal branding. So I'm really kind of getting back to a focus on that with Let's Talk About Brand. In addition to that, I'm at Gritmon.com. So that's GRIT, like when something's gritty, like sand, MON, like Monday. So Gritmon.com, everything's there. And I'm on pretty much all social media. I don't do TikTok professionally, but I'm pretty much everywhere else. Usually as C. Gritmon, sometimes as Christine Gritmon, sometimes as Christine Gritmon Inc. So any of those places, wherever you are most comfortable, reach me there. But you can find it all kind of wrapped together at Gritmon.com.
Love it. This was super inspiring. I'm more motivated to create more content. So thanks for the inspiration.
Because you know what? I struggle too. So this gave me a bit of motivation too, so that I can actually follow my own dang advice.
Yes. That's right. That's usually the best advice too, right? Your own advice.
I know.
So good. Christine, appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here, and hope to talk to you really soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for hanging with me, my friend. If you want the show notes, the links, the different things that we talked about, just go to studiosherpas.com/372. And if you have questions, thoughts, you want to leave a comment, if you're watching this video, please feel free to comment below. If you have questions, you can put those in the comments, or you can email me directly, Ryan, RYAN, @studiosherpas.com. And if there is a topic or something that you would just love to hear from me, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm also on the socials @Ryan Coral and also @Grow Your Video Business. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have an incredible week. May you have an incredible week, and may you be a blessing to all those that you run into, not just people in business that you're trying to win business from and trying to serve well, but also at home and in your neighborhood and community. So that's all I got for you today, my friend. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.